Alright people, Catfish Dave here. It's late March. It's the middle of the day because I'm too lazy to get up on a weekend. And one reason I've chose this spot is to get out of the wind. There's some extreme wind overhead. You can't tell it here. There's kind of a mountain behind me. It's kind of breaking it right here. When I rode the main river up into this river, it was nothing but big white caps. It was rough. The last video I made, the weather was very rough as far as wind. Basically, a section of the river like this, a blue cat is possible. A channel cat is more likely. But there's a big tree down just to my left here. And I've got a live white bass on there. And basically, this kind of section of the river is notorious for flatheads. So my main target fish is flatheads. I don't have a lot of skipjack, so I have to limit it for right now. Until then, I'm gonna give this midday flathead a try. And it might not hurt to put a couple float rigs out with white bass. I've got them, I caught them while catching skipjack, kept them alive. So I may take a second white bass and put it a little farther downriver out of the way of the other one. As far as a live bait, cut baits, I prefer oily bait fish. Live bait, to me, it don't really matter. The fact that it is alive is the attractant. Getting warm. Getting hot. I'm trying to get them floats, or at least one of them, to work its way up onto the bank, and he is, so. Smells like Flathead neighborhood to me, man. I've never fished here, just scouting around on the boat. I don't never catch anything on white bass, but I'm gonna put a little strip of it on this rod and kind of put it out into that current over there. A flathead will hit a strip bait like this because it's kind of fluttering in the current. Makes it a little more attractive. We'll put it out there. It is fresh, so. Fish on, fish on, fish on. Fish on. I've been catfishing for 30-something years in the Tennessee River. That's the first fish I've ever caught on a piece of white bass. I hate white bass. I only kept them because the skipjacks was tough, but that was my first catfish on a piece of white bass. So far, the midday flathead bite is not panning out. Flatheads are a funny fish. They're either biting or they ain't biting. They may be biting just at a certain time of day, certain time of night. Could be early in the morning, could be right at dark, could be at 3 o'clock in the morning, could be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Either way, it don't look like I'm gonna see a flathead real soon. This don't pan out, I'm headed back down to bigger water. I figured I'd give it a shot, because you never know until you throw. That right there is the second fish I've ever caught on a piece of white bass. And as a matter of fact, it's the same piece I caught the first fish on. The live bait flathead bite is not happening. And the only reason I really came up here was, for one, I had live bait. I couldn't fish this morning because of strong thunderstorms that came through this morning. And the main reason I came here was to get out of that wind. It's rough. By what the day's put out so far, let's pack up this show here and head out to that open water. Alright people, I'm going to be honest, I ain't having no fun at all today. Today is just like last trip, too much wind. I tried to go where I seen those fish on the depth finder out there in the main river. It's just too much wind. I'm pulled up right here where I launched my boat, man. About 8 foot of water. If you catch a blue cat in here, it's going to be a straggler. I put a white bass on a float. And he wants to keep running into my anchor. He won't go down that way. He wants to keep running into my anchor. He's trying to go under the boat. He does everything but go where I want him to. Either way, not a fun trip. If I get anything good here, it'll probably be a flathead. I can't imagine a big blue in here right now, this time of year, this time of day. This is where we're at. Got a white bass on a float and a white bass head on my rod over there. I'm not wasting my skipjack in here. Here comes this stupid white bass. He swam all the way back to the boat going straight for my anchor. I threw him way down there. Here he is back here. I'm fixing to knock him over the head and throw him out dead if he don't quit. It's gonna be one of those days again. He got my green grub. Dag blasted. Well, so far it's an uneventful day. Couple blue cat. This second spot, ain't seen a catfish. Of course, I didn't expect to see many blue cat in the first place. I've had 3 shots at skipjack. I got 1 in the cooler. This white bass has been swimming around, up the boat, under the boat, back out into my other lines. I keep reeling them in and casting them back out. Surely something could eat that white bass. There has to be flatheads in here. Even if the blues ain't in here, there has to be a flathead sometime. I'm gonna eat another can of Vienna sausage. All right, people, the skipjack bite has died. Wasn't much of one to begin with. The wind has actually died. Now, I've been out here on this river since about noon. Went up to the first spot, hoping for a live bait flathead, couple blues. Come in this spot just to get out of the wind. Now, we know the flatheads have not hit all day long. And we know they have to eat sometime. Now, this is somewhat flathead waters. I know it's going to be a lot windier out there than what it is in here, so I may stay in here. I've got 1 live gizzard shad still in the tank that I can put on a float. I guess I'm going to stick around, see what happens with this live bait after dark. I'm kind of determined to get a flathead on a live bait. I guess I'll stay here We going with the live gizzard shad. I'm gonna cut the tail off the shad. He's already swam my float in a big knot. Well, something done got my gizzard shad. You gotta be kidding me. It's like all we got's that stinking white bass. And he's aggravating, because when I throw him out, he either wants to swim into my line or he wants to swim back to the boat or to that side of the boat. He will not go anywhere I want him to. I don't care how many times I keep throwing him back over there. Fixing to move him again because he's in my other line now. And stay over there. Stupid white bass. Either that white bass is moving awful good or something has got him. I believe something's on that old white bass. See what we got. Yep, there's definitely something on it. Ain't no big fish. I'm gonna get my other line. You gotta be kidding me. Well, that's it, people. I'm out of live bait. My gizzard shad came off pretty quick. And that same white bass I've been floating around at 2 different spots all day long, and I mean all day long, has finally got nailed by this little flathead. You gotta be kidding me. He was hungry. Alright people, bottom line, y'all seen how windy it was my last video. Well, I didn't want to deal with that again. It was even windier today. So I launched here at Singleton, and I kept going and going and going until I found a spot out of the wind. That was that first place I said. It was way up the little river. Decided after about 4 hours there, the live bait float bite just wasn't happening. So I determined I would go over to some deeper water, and it was just too much wind. The wind was blowing me hard upstream against a strong current. It was ridiculous. Water splashing in the boat, everything else. So I kind of came back in here to hide. I knew it was flathead territory, and I was determined to get something on one of them stinking floats. Today was a first. I caught my first 2 blue cat on cut white bass, and I also caught my first fish on a live white bass, which was that flathead you just seen. So no big fish landed today. It's been a tough day, but that's fishing sometimes. Can't get a big one every time you go, but you never know until you throw. I'll just keep chunking them baits, that's all I know. This is a video. There was fish in the video, that makes it a fishing video. This is Catfish Dave with another one, signing out.